From the earliest days of Stephenson's rocket to the modern light rail system of London's Docklands, British railway locomotives have always been incredibly varied. This programme explores the rich diversity of size, shape and function, with modern trains and preserved locomotives hard at work in locations all over Britain and beyond. In the earliest locomotives, only the most basic of features had been developed, lending a stark appearance to colliery engines such as Agenoria. George Stephenson made the big breakthrough in 1829. His rocket was the first locomotive to employ a tubular boiler, direct drive and a blast pipe, all essential features of the steam locomotives which followed. The design can be seen in action at the National Railway Museum.
Right, this replica was built in 1979 up at Springwell near Newcastle. Very much like the original engine, it's no brakes, no anything, no cab, no running board. The modern features are it's got a welded boiler and it's also got a modern safety valve.
The Bayer Garrett was one of the most distinctive British locomotive designs. The only survivors are those which were exported, but one example has been returned to its birthplace in Manchester. The name is derived from the patentee, Herbert W. Garrett, and its builders, Bayer, Peacock and Company. The design achieved great success abroad, particularly in Africa, where they were the last working steam engines. The Garrett is unique with two distinct engines. The boiler unit and heavy girder frame are mounted on pivots between them. The engines also support tapered fuel and water tenders. In this harsh environment, the Garrett's distinct advantages really come into their own. Such locomotives not only had greater adhesion and power, but they could also operate on lighter rails, and the articulated engines could negotiate tightly curved tracks. For remote narrow-gauge lines, which often ran through incredible landscapes, the Garrett was the most efficient motive power available. East Africa's mountain-class Garretts were the most powerful locomotives ever to run on meter gauge. Built by Bayer Peacock in 1955, they weighed 251 tons and supplied 83,000 pounds of tractive effort. They may have lacked speed and beauty, but for their ability to haul great loads over vast distances, they represented a high point in British locomotive design. The Garrett was also perfectly suited to Australia. These 28-wheelers on Queensland's Dawson Valley line were amongst the last to operate there. South America was another stamping ground for the Garrett. Back in the 1960s, they were a common sight on the high Andean plateau of Bolivia. Beneath the high plateau of the cairngorms, the Strath's Bay Railway operates a number of preserved locomotives, but the stock list also includes this unusual self-propelled coaling train. This 3-ton diesel crane was built by Thomas Smith of Rodley in 1951 and spent most of its working life with British Sugar at Cupar in Fife. Number 9 is not so rare. Hundreds of these 060 austerity saddle tanks were built during and after the war. They are now the most common design of steam engine to have survived. Further south at Preston Grange, there is an operational Victorian steam crane navvy.
We believe it was built in the 1860s and came from Lady Victoria Colliery near Newton Grange in West Lothian, which we're able to steam not very often because it's an awkward machine to raise steam on and slow, but we do use it occasionally for test purposes and laying track and that sort of thing. It's a very interesting piece of machinery and worth coming to see.
Built by the Whittaker brothers near Leeds, the crane has a vertical boiler and a relatively low working pressure of only 60 pounds per square inch. This massive 50-ton steam breakdown crane was built by Cowan Sheldon of Carlisle for the LMS railway in 1930. It was involved in the clearance of several major accidents before purchase by the Keighley and Worth Valley in 1982. The boiler supplies steam, both for propulsion and for lifting, with hydraulic control gear, which is light and easy to operate. On this occasion, it was part of a works train, which was collecting an old Midland Railway turntable for installation at the Keighley terminus. Sir Vincent is a geared locomotive, built in 1917 by Aveling and Porter, who are better known for their steam traction engines. The engine is owned by the Northamptonshire Ironstone Railway Trust. After a visit to the Bluebell Railway, a Victorian dockyard shunter prepared her for the road journey home. In 1869, Robert Fairley designed a double-ended, articulated tank locomotive. It brought him worldwide fame, and the type is still in regular service on the Festiniog Railway. Merlin Emrys, or Merlin the Wizard, was built at the Festiniog's own works in 1879. Early livery has been retained despite a conversion to oil burning in 1972. The Fairley is actually two locomotives built back to back with wheels on bogies, which turn independently of the rigid engine frame. The design was perfect for twisting narrow gauge railways. As a result, new lines were pushed into regions previously considered too rugged. Up to 1911, some 300 Fairleys were built for use all over the world, and today the basic principle of articulated power bogies is applied to most mainline diesel and electric locomotives. Another survivor is Livingston Thompson, now cosmetically restored and displayed in York. In 1979, the original bogies were used for the construction of the new double Fairley, the Earl of Merioneth. Southport is a bustling seaside resort which also houses a railway centre based on the old British Rail Motive Power Depot at Derby Road. Amongst the collection of road and rail exhibits is St. Monan's. This geared four-wheel steam locomotive has a vertical boiler and cylinders. She was built for Horton Plaster Works by Sentinels of Shrewsbury in 1947 and worked there until 1971. Earlier designs of vertical boiler locomotives were usually nicknamed coffee pots. This example was built in 1877 by De Winton and Company of Carnarvon, a firm which specialized in vertical engines. From late Victorian times, they were very popular with quarries and other small industrial sites. Snowdon, the highest mountain in England and Wales, rises to over 3,500 feet. Once the only way to the top was the hard way, on foot. The Victorian love for adventure and railway building resulted in the formation of the Snowdon Mountain Tramroad and Hotels Company, and since 1896, the only wreck and pinion railway in Great Britain has transported people in comfort and safety from the shores of Lake Padarn to the barren heights of Snowdon itself. The railway has 7 steam locomotives, the first being delivered in 1895. All operate on the apt rack system, with double-bladed racks offset for safety and strength. The principle is demonstrated on single rack, which is used in sidings. The pinions engage with the teeth of the rack and are the only form of power transmission, the running wheels rotating freely on the 2 axles. The point work differs from standard adhesion practice, as it has to allow for the switching of the rack as well as the running surfaces. This is achieved in a single movement. Locomotive number 4 is ready for service and couples up to a coach full of passengers before tackling the lower section of the line. This compact 042 tank locomotive was built in Switzerland almost 100 years ago, but even on these gradients, averaging 1 in 7.8, it still proves its worth. Hebron Station, one of the 3 passing places on the line, number 4 has entered the loop awaiting the arrival of number 7. With the authority of the blockman, number 7 continues to pound its way towards the summit. Although the mainstay of motive power is steam, the railway wanted the flexibility and economy of diesel locomotives. So Hunslet's were asked to build 2 320 horsepower 4-wheel diesels, which entered service in 1986. Diesel number 9, descending to Clogwin, must pass the station loop before our patient, number 4, can continue onto the summit. This is a busy mountain, and train movements between sections must be controlled by blockmen, with overall train control directed by radio from Llanberis. The summit gained, passengers are free to get off the train and to mingle with the walkers amid the barren rocks. All share this magnificent panorama until number 7 is ready to carry the passengers down again. Although the vast majority of Britain's steam locomotives were built at home, there were a few exceptions, notably the American S-160 and USA classes. Big Jim is an American 280 now working on the Keighley-Worth Valley Railway. In 1944 and 45, the U.S. Army Transportation Corps brought more than 2,000 of these S-160s over to Europe. Several hundred worked Britain's railways during the latter part of the war, before leaving for service overseas. Another wartime import was the USA Class 060 tank engine. These typically American heavy shunting engines were shipped across the Atlantic in kit form. After the war, they were purchased by the Southern Railway. The bunkers and cabs were modified, and they were put to work in the docks at Southampton. Dr. Syn is a North American style locomotive of the 15-inch gauge Romney Hythe and Dymchurch Railway. In 1931, millionaire owner Captain Howe commissioned 2 new Pacifics from the eminent model engineer Henry Greenley. Greenley had designed and built the system 6 years earlier, but there was a disagreement and the plans were destroyed. Captain Howe then turned to the Yorkshire Engine Company to complete Dr. Syn. The line is the longest and most fully equipped minimum gauge railway in the world and runs along the south coast for more than 13 miles to the lighthouse at Dungeness. In northeast India, the Darjeeling Himalaya, one of the world's best-loved steam railways, still survives. For character and style, the line has often been compared to the Festiniog Railway, and one persistent legend states that it was designed by George Percival Spooner, the eldest son of the Spooners of Festiniog, who left Britain in disgrace in 1879. The line is operated by 040 B-class saddle tanks. The first of which were built for the Darjeeling Railway by British manufacturers in the 1880s. Many enthusiasts consider this 55-mile, 2-foot gauge railway to be the finest in the world. After passing through Courseong, the line climbs high into the mountains. The tracks need regular sanding, and an ingenious system of zigzags enables the trains to tackle otherwise impossible gradients. After almost 100 years, Darjeeling saddle tanks returned to Britain, but they've become even smaller. Sherpa, the Fairborn Railway's 12.25-inch gauge replica, was built in 1978 by Milner Engineering. Smaller still is Kachinjunga, a 7.25-inch gauge replica at the Festiniog Spring Gala. Another Anglo-Indian design now takes pride of place on Norfolk's Bure Valley Railway. For years, this 15-inch gauge railway has lacked suitable motive power for its 9-mile line. In 1984, two half-size replicas of Bagnall's Indian ZB class locomotives were built by Winston Engineering of Porthmadog. The 262 tender configuration was ideal for the Bure Valley's steeply graded line, and they've proved incredibly popular. We find our last miniature at the Conway Valley Railway Museum. This is Old Rube, a 5th scale replica of a 19th century Denver and Rio Grande 280. She was built by Milner Engineering in 1983. For such a small scale, the museum system is quite extensive. Over a mile of 7.25-inch gauge track covers some 4.5 acres, with a capacity to operate 3 trains at any one time. cost-efficient transport has always been a feature of the railway's permanent way departments, and there can be few more economic means of transport than the pump trolley. The Wickham railcar requires less effort, but is only marginally more comfortable. From Aberystwyth, a unique ex-British Rail steam railway runs inland to the Devil's Bridge. Inside the original Great Western steamshed, preparations for the day's service are already well underway, as the oil burners are lit and the footplate men wait for steam. Number 7, Owen Glendower, emerges from the sheds. This 262 tank engine was built in 1923 by the Great Western Railway Company and proudly bears the name of the medieval prince who is still revered as a hero of Welsh nationalism. The railway has served the lead mines and timber traffic of the Rheidol Valley since 1902. To save money, it was built to the narrow gauge of only 1 foot 11.5 inches. But these locomotives are far from small. They weigh over 25 tons and are more than 8 feet wide. They have the distinction of being the last narrow gauge and the last steam trains to be operated by British Rail. The journey from Aberystwyth to Devil's Bridge takes approximately an hour and passes through some magnificent scenery. Climbing high above the valley floor, the splendid views provided by the train can be appreciated to the full. Devil's Bridge and Journey's End for passengers on the Vale of Rheidol. The train has climbed almost 700 feet in less than 12 miles. Owen Glendower uncouples and runs round her train for the return to Aberystwyth. Aberystwyth can also claim the longest electric cliff railway in Britain, a cable-hauled funicular which climbs Constitution Hill. Since 1890, the two North Devon villages of Linton and Lynmouth have been linked by an impressive cliff railway, once described as the steepest railway in the world. A unique feature is the use of water ballast. Steel cables link the passenger cars, which sit on wedge-shaped tanks. The top car is filled with water to make it heavy. It then descends, pulling the other car up the track. The gradient is an impressive 1 in 1 3/4, but the system is simple and extremely reliable. Since 1890, the cars have carried many millions of passengers without a single accident. Bournemouth has no less than 3 cliff railways, which are referred to as cliff lifts. They carry passengers between the cliff-top town and the beach. Bridgnorth in Shropshire has the only inland cliff railway in Britain. It was opened in 1891 and was originally worked by water ballast. It is now electrically operated and rises 111 feet to the high town area of the town. The Llechwed slate caverns in Festiniog have a funicular railway with a difference. It descends into the earth so that visitors can be shown around the workings of deep mine. Other workings at Llechwed are visited by mine locomotives. These 4-wheel battery electrics operate on a 2-foot gauge line. The locomotive at the Aberllafenni slate quarries still holds slate. This 2-foot 3-inch Clayton battery electric was built in 1974. The Effort Mill on the Isle of Wight is a long way from any mines, but a Hanslet mining locomotive now operates on its 2-foot 6-inch gauge line. Once owned by the Ministry of Defence, this is a 50-horsepower, water-cooled 040 diesel mechanical built in 1940. It has pneumatic operation, and to prevent fire, the exhaust is water-cooled. In 1984, work began on a light rail system which would link the City of London with the Isle of Dogs and serve the prestigious new business development at Canary Wharf. Just 10 years later, the Docklands Light Railway has undergone an almost complete overhaul. Extensions have doubled its mileage and trains have been replaced. The driverless vehicles now operate under CellTrack, a computerized control and signaling system, which is the first of its kind in the United Kingdom. The green route follows the original line to Island Gardens at the end of the Isle of Dogs. With new twin vehicles, the fleet is now 70 strong. There's a new control centre at Poplar and a major rolling stock depot has been built at Beckton. The railway is one of the most advanced in the world, and after a hesitant start, it is ready to handle the mass transit of the 21st century. Narrow gauge railways were once found in brickworks, quarries and mines all over the country. It was on these lines that the internal combustion engine first began to replace steam. One of the most successful manufacturers was Simplex, later Motor Rail, who built petrol locomotives for the supply lines in the First World War. One of the best collections is at the Moseley Railway Museum. Number 9 is an example of the original box-frame Simplex design. It uses the simple arrangement of transverse engine, clutch and two-speed gearbox and drives through chains to the wheels. With such a light engine, even derailments present few problems. Number 7 and number 3 are examples of the highly popular Simplex 20 to 28 horsepower. These four-wheel diesel mechanicals were built by Motor Rail during World War II. Corris, a Motor Rail diesel from 1965, helps with the railway's restoration. British trams have recently cast off their old-fashioned image and new systems have emerged which incorporate all the latest technology. First of the new wave was Manchester's Metrolink, which connects the city centre with Bury and Aldershot. After a break of almost 40 years, street running has made a dramatic return. The city has a bright new image, and the superb old buildings make a magnificent backdrop. Blackpool's system is a little different. England's first electric street tramway was opened here in 1885. It has survived all its contemporaries and still provides a service for thousands of locals and holidaymakers. Of all the trams, it's the illuminated cars which make the most lasting impression. The trams were first equipped with lights to mark Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee in 1897. From 1925, this became a regular event and instigated Blackpool's famous seasonal illuminations. The Rocket was built in 1961. Passengers sit at an angle of 20 degrees behind two waxwork spacemen. The Western train followed a year later. This is a twin-car unit built on the frames of a 1934 rail coach.